Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranams. You can unmute Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranams. Hare Krishna dear devotees, Dandot Pranams to all. We welcome all of you for the today's morning program Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, and today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Sri Balaji Prabhu, and Prabhu will enlighten us on Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto 24th chapter verse 34. Over to you Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you Prabhuji. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि यमुनतीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा सुभद्रमाई जय सुदर्शन जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य षोडश चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य षोडश भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय गौर किशोरदास श्री भवन श्री भक्त ठाकुर जगन्नाथ जी गौरी महाराज की अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से बोलो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय मथुरा धाम की जय मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय पुरुषोत्तम श्री क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंडालखंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय कलियोपान हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय प्रॉपर ट्रांसलेटर कृष्ण कृष्ण की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gaur Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyatam Tajodaya Mudire, Ashtaprayashu Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttamashloka, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishta, Krishnaya Vasudeva, Devaki Nandanaya, Nanda Gopa Kumaraya, Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 24 and text number 34. Prabhu, you want to display it on the screen? Nama Pankajanaabhaya Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kuthasthaya Swarochishe. Nama Pankajanaabhaya Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kuthasthaya Swarochishe. Nama Pankajanaabhaya Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kuthasthaya Swarochishe. Word to word translation and translation purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namaha, all obeisances unto you. Pankaja Nabhaya, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose navel the lotus flower emanates. Bhuta Sukshma, the sense objects. Indriya, the senses. Atmane, the origin. Vasudevaya, unto Lord Vasudeva. Shantaya, always peaceful. Kuthasthaya, without being changed. Swarochishe, unto the supreme illumination. Translation. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformation. Purport. The Lord, as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, lies in the ocean of Garbha within this universe, and from his navel, the lotus flower sprouts. Lord Brahma is generated from that lotus flower, and from Lord Brahma, the creation of this material world begins. As such, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, is the origin of the material senses and sense objects. Since Lord Shiva considers himself to be one of the products of the material world, his senses are under the control of the Supreme Creator. The Supreme Lord is also known as Rishikesha, master of the senses, which indicates that our senses and sense objects are formed by the Supreme Lord. As such, he can control our senses and out of his mercy, engage them in the service of the master of the senses. In the conditioned state, the living entity struggles in this material world and engages his senses for material satisfaction. However, if the living entity is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can engage these very senses in the service of the Lord. Lord Shiva desires not to be misled by the material senses, but to engage always in the service of the Lord without being subject to contamination by materialistic influences. By the grace and help of Lord Vasudeva, who is all-pervading, one can engage his senses in devotional service without deviation, just as the Lord acts without deviation. The words Shantaya, Kuthasthaya, Swarochishe are very significant. Although the Lord is within this material world, he is not disturbed by the waves of material existence. However, conditioned souls are agitated by the 6 kinds of transformations, namely, they become agitated when they are hungry, when they are thirsty, when they are aggrieved, when they are illusioned, when they grow old, and when they are on the deathbed. Although conditioned souls become very easily illusioned by these conditions in the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Super Soul Vasudeva, is never agitated by these transformations. Therefore, it is said here, Kuthasthaya, that he is always peaceful and devoid of agitation because of his prowess, which is described here as Swarochishe, indicating that he is illuminated by his own transcendental position. In other words, the individual soul, although within the illumination of the Supreme, sometimes falls down from that illumination because of his tiny position, and when he falls down, he enters into material conditional life. The Lord, however, is not subject to such conditioning. Therefore, he is described as self-illuminated. Consequently, any conditioned soul within this material universe can remain completely perfect when he is under the protection of Vasudeva or when he is engaged in devotional service. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shra Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauravadishe Nama He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Paramananda Madhava Shri Chaitanya Hare Krishna. So welcome all for the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Today, as we discussed, we are going to discuss a little about Canto 4, Chapter 24 and Shloka number 34. So before we begin, I first really want to thank from the bottom of my heart to His Grace Sankarshan Priya Prabhu, who gave me this opportunity that I could glorify this service, to glorify the Lord and His devotees and the Srimad Bhagavatam, so that I can purify myself. So it is said in Canto 1, Chapter 7, Shloka number 7, Yasyam Vaishurayamanayam Krishna Parama Purushe Bhaktir Utpaddate Pumsaha Shoka Moha Bhaya Apa. Simply by the oral reception of Srimad Bhagavatam, of this wonderful Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna sprouts up at once, and at the same time it extinguishes the fire of Shoka, Moha and Bhaya Apaha, lamentation, illusion and fearfulness. So today's wonderful shloka, it is also called as Rudra Gita, where so in this whole chapter, Lord Shiva is meeting who is the topmost Vaishnava, very compassionately guides. He goes and meets the Prajadas, because he knew that they have come to worship the Lord. So see how wonderful a Vaishnava is, so very compassionate, that whoever so he also says, especially to exemplify this particular statement, he chants the shloka in 20th verse in the same chapter. He says that Supreme Lord, who is beyond the three material modes and who is the origin of all creation, is Lord Vasudeva, and whoever surrenders to that Lord Vasudeva is very, very dear to me. So Lord Shiva is saying this in this 20th verse in this chapter, that whoever worships Lord Vasudeva and whoever surrenders to Lord Vasudeva is very dear to me. And then Lord Shiva, he teaches the Rudra Gita, which was actually taught to him by Brahma, and basically he wanted to bring the Prachetas. So they were in sort of a little Paramamishra Bhakti state, where he wanted to bring the Prachetas to the level of, and wanted to accustom them, or wanted to acquaint them, enlighten them to the process of Bhakti Yoga. Now this whole section or whole chapter of Rudra Gita is divided into 4 parts. The first part is where Lord Shiva offers his obeisances to all the controlling devotees of various deities, the controlling deities of various senses and all the elements. It is a Chaturvyuha. Basically, to purify one's own internal and external senses. That is the first part of this Rudra Gita. The second part, where Shiva describes the beautiful form of Lord Krishna. And the third part is where Lord Shiva glorifies the process of Bhakti Yoga. And the fourth part, Shiva describes the relationship between the Lord and the cosmos. So this is how the Rudra Gita is divided into four wonderful parts. Okay, and we are going to deal with the first part of it, not the whole part, just one portion of the first part. So after Lord Shiva transfers his knowledge of Rudra Gita and the knowledge of the process of Bhakti Yoga to Prachetas. Prachetas, after hearing this, they learned these prayers and chanted them for 10,000 years while doing austerities under water in that particular forest. So if you look at the whole chapter, basically Shiva establishes 3 points. First one is Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. The supreme destination or goal is his abode. And the third and the most important point is the process to achieve the same is Bhakti Yoga. Like Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojan. So in that way, Lord Shiva establishes these 3 points in this particular chapter, very wonderful chapter. And in this section, which I said is one part of that first part of the Rudra Gita, where Lord Shiva offers his obeisances to the Chaturvyuha. And we are going, so there are 4 aspects of the Chaturvyuha, 4 verses basically, 34, 35, 36, and 37, where Chitta, the first part, that is the consciousness, and the presiding deity of the consciousness is Vasudeva. The second part is Ahankara, that is false ego. The presiding deity of that is Sankarshana. The third is Buddhi, that is intelligence, and the presiding deity of Buddhi is Pradyumna. And the fourth part is Manas, that is mind, and the presiding deity of that is Aniruddha. So Lord Shiva in this particular shloka is going to offer his obeisance, is going to glorify, is going to chant the qualities of Lord of Vasudeva, who is the presiding deity of Chitta, that is consciousness. So it's basically a prayer to Vasudeva, who is the presiding deity of Chitta. So in the first line, he says Pankaja Nabhaya. And Pankaja Nabhaya, we all understand what Pankaja Nabhaya is, that from the navel which sprouts the lotus flower. So that is none other than Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So Pankaja Nabhaya refers to Garbhodaksha Vishnu, from whose navel comes a lotus flower. So he is from where Brahma comes, right? And Brahma then creates. He manifests the creation. So here Shiva offers his respects, and through that he describes some of the qualities of the Supreme Lord. He describes him as having a lotus navel, which is Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And by that, Brahma, who comes out and creates the material world, so indicates that Supreme Lord is that person who ultimately is in charge of creating this material world. So he is kind of creating the sambandha where he says everything emanates from Krishna. Therefore, we cannot take Brahma as an independent person, because he is also under the control of Supreme Lord. For that matter, even Garbhodaksha Vishnu is an expansion of Mahavishnu. Okay, so everything finally drills down to Lord Krishna. Okay, so and we all know the first quadruple and second quadruple. Now, in the second line which says Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmane. Okay, so here Lord Shiva is bringing out the next quality of the Lord of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, where he says that Supreme Lord, from whom the lotus navel is emanating, he is the master of an origin, is the origin of senses and sense objects. And the other name, which Prabhupada also mentioned the purport, is Rishikesha, means master of the senses, which is another name for the Lord. Now, we may ask why Shiva is offering such a prayer. It is only because he wanted to engage his senses in the Lord's service. And this is a wonderful teaching that is coming out of this particular shloka. Okay, he's offering prayer and obeisances to the predominant deity of consciousness, predominating deities of consciousness, so that with such a purified consciousness, he can engage his senses in the service of the master of senses or perform bhakti. Else what happens? Now, Lord Shiva is indicating to us here that if with all this conditioning, if we don't engage our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha, what will happen is they are otherwise engaged in materialistic activities and other struggles. Okay, and when we chant this particular shloka is a wonderful opportunity for us to chant this shloka as a prayer, because Lord Shiva is offering us a prayer to Vasudeva, who is the presiding deity of consciousness, so that when we pray, when we chant this shloka, we can pray to the presiding deity of this shloka, to this particular aspect of Rudra Gita, so that our consciousness also can be steady. Okay, so this is the wonderful learning that is coming up from this shloka. Now, the third aspect of this is, which is said, Vasudevaya Shantaya. That is another beautiful quality that is coming out, that Lord Shiva is bringing out to glorify the Lord Supreme Lord. He's saying Shantaya, that is, he is peaceful. Now, Jiva, the living entity who is conditioned under all these struggles and challenges, is always agitated. But Vasudeva is Shanta. So, if one offers these prayers to Vasudeva, we can also be peaceful and not agitated. So see how much potent a prayer is, and that is what Shiva, who is the Vaishnava Yathashambhu, is guiding us. That if we just utter this word Vasudevaya Shantaya, our life, we as this conditioned soul, we in this particular material world, who at Padam Padam Yat Vipadam we say, every time the mind is agitated, we can also, when we offer this prayers, our mind also can be peaceful and not agitated. The next aspect which Lord Shiva brings out is Kutasthaya, changes. Now, Jiva, Prabhupada mentioned, in the translation also it is mentioned, right? You are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformation. Whereas a Jiva is agitated with the 6 transformations. What are those 6 transformations that Prabhupada very clearly brings out in this purport is when they are hungry, and all of us can very well relate to it. We not even have to elaborate this. When they are hungry, when they are thirsty, when they are aggrieved, when they are illusioned, and when they grow old, and when they are on the deathbed. These are the 6 kind of transformations where the Jiva is totally agitated because there are changes happening. But Vasudeva is peaceful and changeless, not agitated by any of the above. Even if he comes into this material world as an incarnation, because he is, the next quality which Shiva mentioned is, he is Swarojishe. It is, Chakravarti Path also translates that Swarojishe word as the Lord is beautiful, the Lord's beauty. Here it is mentioned as Swarojishe, unto the supreme illumination. The Lord is self-illuminated. That is what the last line mentions. Kutasthaya Swarojishe. He is self-illuminated existence which is not contaminated by material world, but Jiva gets contaminated and is agitated. So Lord Shiva is offering these prayers to Vasudeva, who is the predominating deity of this particular aspect of Rudra Gita, that is a chitta or consciousness, so that his consciousness is always peaceful and unchanging, and because of that, he can focus on bhakti or on the Lord's beauty. Okay? Krishna, very beautifully in Bhagavad Gita 6.26. Now, what we will do is we will go to the now we have discussed about or described the qualities which Lord Shiva is bringing out of this Rudra Gita, this particular shloka of the Rudra Gita, and quality of the Supreme Lord, which is dealing with the consciousness, which is indirectly related to the mind, which is again related to the agitation and how to control senses aspect. What we will do is we'll go a little level 2 now, and I'll refer to Bhagavad Gita shloka, chapter 6, shloka number 26. Krishna says, Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatas tato niyam yaitat atmanya eva vasham nayet. Now the mind has a tendency, and we are all very sort of accustomed and acquainted by this fact that mind has a tendency to wander here and there. And when our senses will come in, when it comes in contact with some sense objects. And what happens because of that is they create a deep impressions on our minds. So when our senses watch a particular sense object, observe a particular sense object, I'll give an example. So when somebody sees a beautiful object, okay, and he gets attracted to that particular beautiful object, although whenever the beautiful object goes off that person's side, still the impressions or the experiences of seeing that beautiful object will enter the mind and are stored in the mind. This is similar to what we do with a computer, right? Stores in a RAM or memory or what we call it. So they are stored in the mind, and mind constantly meditates and thinks about this beautiful object. So now what happens? So in this particular shloka, it says manas chanchala. Okay, that's why the quality of the mind is to be chanchalam. It is always between sankalpa and vikalpa, either extremes, right? And it is also very fickle. The next word is asthira. It is very, so chanchal is very fickle, and asthiram is the mind is so unsteady. So with this particular two combination, it's a very deadly combination, being fickle and asthira. Okay, because the mind, and what happens, as I said in the earlier example, when somebody sees a beautiful object, sense object through the senses, it creates an impression. Even after that particular sense object moves on the sight of that particular person. Now what happens? Now imagine when our senses are continuously engrossed in such sense objects, and these kind of impressions are constantly building, piled up into our mind. Okay, and with the quality, with this deadly combination of being chanchala and asthiram, what is going to be the repercussion of that? So the problem here is what happens because of that. So mind constantly thinks of all these things because of its unsteady nature, asthiram. What happens? The repercussion of this is we may not be able to focus on what we are doing currently. Our current focus, whether it is pursuing sadhana or whether it is, for that matter, whether it is academics or some professional job or whatever, the intention, the intent should be that we are supposed to focus our mind on the current job, but because of this material impressions and the desires stored in the mind, they distract us. Okay. Now, Krishna says, he said Chanchalam Astiram. Okay. Now what happens? So now Krishna in this particular shloka also gives us a solution. Okay. So he says whenever the mind wanders to some place thinking of some material impression, what we have to do? We only have to bring the mind back. Just get it back and make it focus on your current activity. We all have heard whenever we attend the japa retreat, or whenever there is a discussion of japa, that every time we have to bring our mind back onto the mantra. Okay? But it's not only the mantra. See, it's not about the 2 hour. It is about the 2 hour, that the potency that the chanting of the mantra, when we try to bring our mind focused on the mantra, but the practice has to be done in the next 22 hours. So those 2 hours, how we can excel, how we can perform very nicely, very focusedly in those 2 hours is by practicing bringing the mind back in the remaining 22 hours. Krishna uses the word vasham. Atmanya eva vasham nayet. So which means you bring it under your control as soon as the mind starts thinking of something else other than what you're trying to do. So you have to try to bring the mind. This has to be, it has to be practiced, as I said, in the remaining 22 hours. And that is the endeavor. And that is the endeavor that Krishna is asking. See, Krishna gives us the philosophy. Yeah, Krishna has given this philosophy. This is a mercy that we have. But the endeavor is our part. Okay. So what is the endeavor? That the simple endeavor that we have to do in the 22 hours, if we practice and believe me, at least I have experience. Believe me when I say that every moment, this whole surrounding us gives us opportunity to get distracted, and also gives us. So look at the positive side of it. It also gives us an opportunity to practice this Atmani evam vasham nayat. Okay, by understanding the fact that our mind is chanchalam astiram, what we have to do, bring it back. Because if that 22 hours, if you put that effort, and this again, when I say this is also for me to practice. I'm not also practicing. I'm trying to practice this, but this 22 hours, when we put this effort to bring this mind back to our current, and what is the focus that we bring is. Is this wonderful process that Srila Prabhupada has given. Every moment, Prabhupada has ensured that the whole package is available for us. So whenever you feel the mind is distracted, try to bring out to the current thing that you're doing. So with this, what will happen with this practice, with this endeavor, when we do the 2 hours japa, it will be very easy. And I know, and it goes with the fact that obviously the best part is the Brahman. So that is always so it's basically the point that I want to bring out is it's a constant endeavor to control the mind and focus on our goals. The more we try to bring the mind back and put it on, make it focus on what we're doing currently, the more the impression stored in the mind will just go away. See how that works? How Krishna very smartly has given this particular small aspect of bring the mind, but there is so whole lot of things behind it. So he says what happens is when we try to bring the mind every time and bring it back to the current thing, right? What happens is those material impressions or the experiences that get stored in our RAM or ROM, which you call it, which we may call, it gets slowly replaced. It's like pouring clear water in a glass full of dirty water. You keep on pouring clear water, automatically the dirt will automatically get cleared. Okay, so the concept here is it is a way to nullify or just throw away all the negative unwanted impressions in the mind. For that, we need to constantly bring back the mind whenever it wanders away, especially while chanting the holy names of God. The mind creates a great turbulence. We all, and it is I definitely experience all these things. Great turbulence within the mind, and it does not allow them to focus. It does not allow us to focus on the holy names of God, the mantra that we chant. So it is, as Krishna says, we have to practice bringing them. There is no other way. Okay. So now this was the kind of level 2, where I want to take. And now let us go at a level 3. Let us delve into the senses part of it. So first part, we understood that how we can, Lord Shiva is telling us to chant this prayer so that we can focus on the predominating or the presiding deity of this particular aspect of chitta or consciousness. So what will happen? We can steady our consciousness and engage our senses in the service of the Lord. That is the first part. Second part, which we saw, was how Krishna is giving us that, the solution. He gives us the problem statement also and gives us the solution also. Chanchalam and Asthiram is the mind. What you have to do is just practice to bring it back. Okay. Now, the third aspect, the third level of this is controlling the senses. And the first and foremost step in avoiding the temptations of the senses is what we eat. This is the most basic step. Once the tongue is controlled by eating prasadam only, eating what is necessary, and also eating prasadam only and eating what is necessary in the prasadam, that is also important, because definitely prasadam is transcendental, but we are not. Right? So it is very important that in the prasadam also what we also eat is very necessary. Okay, only then we can hope that our tongue will be controlled. And what happens because of that? When the tongue is controlled, our vacha, how we speak and what we speak, is also controlled. Okay. It's so basically when I said that prasadam definitely is transcendental, but we are not transcendental. We have all our conditionings. Yeah? So the point here is we are driven by our consciousness. We are driven by our conscious, our conditioning to speak what we speak. But what happens is we have to have a firm faith in the aspect that when our consciousness is getting purified, but by accepting prasadam in a very regulated and controlled manner, in a very scientific manner, then our vacha, our speech also becomes gradually controlled. So yes, there are a lot of lures in prasadam. Also, we at times we have, I also have opulent prasadam, but if we do it in a regulated and controlled manner, okay, and obviously in a very scientific manner, what I mean by that is, what is good from a health perspective, that also we have to take care. But we have to try to put our endeavor to do it in a regulated and a controlled manner. So two things will happen. One is, our tongue will be controlled. Okay, but tongue will be controlled, and because of that, our vacha will also be controlled. The first and foremost step in avoiding the temptation of senses is to try and keep ourselves regulated and in a controlled manner, try to regulate and control what we eat. Okay? The second one is the eyes. This is another powerful sense, right, which can get diluted, can get illusioned by all the sense objects which are in front of us. Okay? Renunciates, sannyasis and brahmacharis are trained in such a way, in a way that they are trained in a way that where to see and where not to see, especially when the opposite sex is concerned, right? They are trained in such a beautiful manner. I've heard and I've seen also devotees, brahmacharis practicing that. They do not see them in their eyes. They either see somewhere else or at their feet. Okay. Now, these are the standards that Srila Prabhupada has given us. And especially for brahmacharis and renunciates, it is definitely a standard and a training process that Prabhupada has given. So see how much Prabhupada has taken care that Prabhupada knew first the mind is chanchala mastira, then the senses and the sense objects are always there to delude us and illusion us, but he ensured that training, the perfect training and the whole package, the whole sadhana bhakti process, right? The bhakti process is in such a way that if we practice it sincerely and with determination, with sincerity and determination, the process itself will ensure that we don't get deluded or we don't get illusioned. Such is a wonderful that Prabhupada has given us. Okay? So as sadhakas, we need to train ourselves to not see in the areas that we need not see, because as grihasthas, right, we are around so many, especially matajis, right, especially ladies. The most important part. So we are around the opposite thing. But the most important part, because of grihasthas, is it is important not to see where we should not see, but it is also important not to ponder on them after we see them. That's the most important aspect also. Okay. So again, goal of life does not differ from the ashram. So whether it is sannyasis or brahmacharis or grihasthas, the goal of life is the same. The objective is same. Okay. So and that is why for brahmacharis, they always look all ladies as matajis. For them, all are mothers, all are matajis. And for grihasthas, except for wife, rest all are mothers. Okay. Now again, as I said earlier, this is something that we have to be really grateful to Srila Prabhupada, that how he ensured that we don't get carried away. Whether the Bhagavad Gita or the Devotees Association or the wonderful association of brahmacharis and sannyasis is always there to guide us. The only problem is, when at times when somebody gets deluded or illusion, they might kind of justify that particular act and do not take shelter of, and because of that, they are not, from internal, they don't feel that something wrong is happening, and they don't take shelter of devotees, because the association of shelter of devotees in a situation where we feel, yes, my mind is getting distracted, we have to take shelter of devotees. We have to take a shelter of those advanced devotees, of the senior devotees who are practicing this very news. Okay. So not we did not be indiscriminately be involved in any. So again, we have to be mature enough. We have to be, the knowledge is there, so we have to be very mature enough when we are dealing with potential sense objects, with their potential aspects of where we might get involved more or get carried away. So we need not be indiscriminately involved in any sense objects. That comes across our life, obviously by the power of destiny. So we have to be very mature. Maya is always, at all the time. Maya is all the time trying to distract us from Krishna. That is her seva. But what we have to do, we have to always run to the sastam of devotees. Wherever such whenever such challenges comes in our lives. That is one thing, that is the endeavor that we have to do. The mercy is available, but the endeavor from our side is we have to always run to the satsang of devotees. Yeah? Now if we have to progress, if we have to progress in Krishna consciousness, we have to deprive our senses of unnecessary gratifications and provide oneself what is necessary for sustaining. That much is enough. See, as I said earlier also, in a very controlled and regulated manner, it is allowed. It is allowed. But if indiscriminately, without even being, being alert and aware, that so that we can avoid any accidents, if we indiscriminately get involved in such things, it is not good. It is not conducive to our bhakti process. Yeah. Whatever is necessary for sustaining, we have to do. Now, what happens when we start depriving our senses? See, this is another part. This is a strength part of it. When we start, because see, everything has to be tangible. If I am doing this, what is in it for me? So when we start depriving our senses, at that point, we get strength in consciousness to face the challenges outside. So whenever a weak thing goes off, the strong thing enters. So in the similar way, when we start depriving our senses with determination, with sincerity and determination, then we get the strength and consciousness to face the challenges outside. Okay? So this was the second part. So first one we discussed was the what we eat. Second was what we see basically, and the last part, the third part, which I want to talk about and discuss about is absorption. Okay? So absorption in Krishna consciousness. Hanumanji is the best example of that. Hanumanji, when he went in search of Mother Sita, and obviously he was treading through the most abominable area of the Asuras. What else he would see? He would see all abominable things happening over there, all alluring sense objects. But what happened? He was so absorbed in the seva that his worshipable Lord has given, he was not even impacted by any of the sense objects. I'll give one more example. A deer, when a tiger sees a deer, at the same time when a poet sees a deer, and at the same time when a male deer sees this deer, there will be three different thought processes. When the tiger sees the deer, he would see the deer as good. When a poet sees the deer, he would see that he might write a nice poetry because he would see the beautiful thing. And when a male deer sees the deer, he would see that as an object of enjoyment. So three different entities, three different thought processes. What is the difference? The difference is in the consciousness. So we have to train and change our consciousness to think differently. That is what we have to do. And again, coming to the point, what Srila Prabhupada has given as a whole package to change our consciousness, we have to follow with great sincerity and determination the below things. One is associate with devotees, eat prasadam, chant the holy name, read scriptures, serve the devotees, serve the deities, serve Tulsi Maharani, go to the holy places regularly, hear the pastimes of the Lord regularly. Okay, if three aspects that when respect regularly done and in a regulated way done, when these three aspects are there in any form of in all these forms that I just called out, when we do these things, associate with devotees, eat prasadam, chant the holy name, and all those other things respectfully, we do it regularly, and we do it in a regulated way. When we do all these things in these three ways, right, the progress, the strength to advance and the strength to deprive our senses against from the sense objects and the opportunity to improve our consciousness is guaranteed only when we do these three things, right? Now, the most important part, apart from all this, we have to have faith. Prabhupada has lined up everything, but we have to have faith in the process that Srila Prabhupada, whatever the process that Srila Prabhupada has given is perfect. And believe me when I say there are devotees who have claimed this, that this process is perfect, this process works. There was one devotee, I heard from a devotee, this devotee was on the deathbed. The last moments, all other devotees were sitting beside his deathbed and chanting and doing kirtan. You know what the devotee did? This devotee who was on the last breath probably, he raised his thumb like this. He raised his thumb and uttered, Prabhupada did not cheat us. This is it's a very big statement. A devotee who's on the last moment, he's raising his thumb, giving a thumbs up, and then he utters like, Prabhupada never cheated us. So we have to have this simple, childlike, innocent faith that this process given by Srila Prabhupada is perfect. Definitely we will have all challenges, but this faith will give the strength to cross over all the challenges. So we have to have strong sadhana. So with this particular faith, with the aspects of being respectful, being regular, being regulated, what will happen is the earlier example that I gave of the deer. When we do the sadhana practice nicely, we can see the deer as the Lord's creation, and not like the other consciousness of the tiger, the male deer, or the boy. So we will not have that particular consciousness. Rather, our consciousness will be fixed on to see every living entity as the Lord's creation. Okay. Now, there are many pastimes where the importance of significance of the presence of Lord in our lives is narrated and mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. I just take one particular pastime where Kamadev, okay, when Krishna was about to enter, start his pastimes in this material world, he had assigned everyone that you be here, and all those assignment had started. But Kamadev said, I will not do that. I will do what I want. So Krishna knew obviously what he wanted and how Krishna is going to deal with that at a later point. Krishna also had planned that. So he let him do whatever he wanted. So what he did was, Kamadev and his wife Prati, he told his wife Prati that you create a nice, beautiful pond, okay, with all the sense objects over there. So anyone who comes there will be bound by that particular ambience over there, and obviously the lust increases, right? So that was his intention. And what happened was, and there is a place called Ranvari near Chhatta. So this is a place called Ranvari. And what happened was, when gopis came over there, and obviously Kamdev, right, who had created that. So that little illusion happened, and Krishna saw that. Krishna realized that, and immediately he went to individual gopis as an individual, as himself. He went to each and every gopi, and at that moment the illusion was removed. So in this way, so this particular pastime, and then Kamadev understood his mistake. So Kamadev's pride and all those things was shattered, and he took shelter of the Lord. He understood. And there was another incident also, if you remember, with Śiva. He did the same thing. Okay, he tried to engage him with a sense object, and then Śiva, when he opened his third eye, and just burnt him. So like this, we all, whenever there is such a challenge, this particular pastime says, we immediately bring Lord in our life. We immediately focus our mind towards Lord, our consciousness toward the Lord. That is the easiest way. Lord will help. Okay. Now, whenever there is so basically the power of the presence of the Lord. Okay, these kind of material hankerings for sense gratification become insignificant and can be destroyed completely. So we need not worry. All of us, as I said, in the 22 hours, we go through multiple distractions. But when we bring Lord in our life, immediately that power or the presence of the Lord destroys this particular. It makes that particular hankering very insignificant, and it can be easily destroyed. It completely destroyed, basically. And Hanumanji is when I read this, right, Hanuman is always, so that particular pastime, when Hanumanji is going to search for Mother Sita, he was so absorbed. He was so absorbed in his worship, that he was so motivated. The desire was so strong, and we all know that Sundarkand particular episode, right? How many allurements had come, but his Ekehe Purunandana, he had the sincerity and a determined focus that yes, I have a seva, I have to complete that. For all of us, our seva definitely when we chant, right? That is our seva. That is our service to the Lord of chanting the holy name. So all this strong determination, the strong desire to serve the Lord is based on one aspect of humility. So Hanumanji had that in abundance. He had that in abundance. In fact, to the point that even the Lord chose Hanumanji to curb the pride of other devotees. There were 2-3 incidents. One we can talk about the Sudarshan Chakra. He utilized that humility to break the pride of Sudarshan Chakra. Okay? So, similarly, in the process of bhakti, there are potentials. There are potentials that potential or possibilities that we might develop. Obviously, we develop knowledge. And there will be a following, there will be a big following. Then we might get into that in an influence that that I can influence to create something, and and because of the position that we get, right? And because of the power that we that comes along with being in the front of the process and all that, there is a potential, there is a possibility that all these things will come our way because of the position, the power that I can influence things, I have a lot of following, and all those things will come. So what happens is, that is nothing but pride. As soon as pride is developed, what follows immediately is lust. Lust arises. And after that, as we all know, what immediately follows is fall down. Okay? So if humility is, so humility of Hanuman is very inspiring. That is the only thing because of which Lord asked him. And then one other aspect, one other place where Hanumanji also exemplified this aspect of humility is Lord. If you all remember in Mahabharata war, Lord asked Hanumanji to be seated, just sit, be there on the flag, and what he has to do, roar. Now Hanumanji could have told, my Lord, you know what I've done. I single-handedly destroyed the entire Lanka. I burnt it. I've destroyed so many asuras. What is this? What is Kurukshetra for me? So instead of roaring, I can you sit, my Lord, you sit, relax. I will go and do all the necessary things. He could have also told Arjuna when he was getting battered and bruised by all those arrows from Bhishmadev. He could have told, my Lord, you sit. I will do the needful. He had that potential. He had that capacity. But just because of that seva bhav and that humility, Hanumanji said, agreed that I will just stand on the flag and roar. So, but though he had so much power. So we can pray, to Hanumanji to develop that, we need to get absorbed and enticed by the attraction of service to the Lord and to his devotees. So we can, whenever we go to any Hanuman temple, this is the wonderful prayer that we can, offer to Hanumanji, that please allow me that I can, I can be absorbed and enticed by the attraction of the service to the Lord and his devotees. And because of that, these big temptations, this allurements become very insignificant by your powerful worship. Okay? And that is, see, again, with our limited, with our imperfections and limited capabilities, there is no question, there is outright no question that we will ever control these allurements. These things are not to be won over by devotee individually. This is the blessing of the Lord is that we have to seek the mercy of the Lord. Only by the blessings of the Lord and the blessing of the Lord and his devotees, it is possible. It will be possible for us to tread over this material allurements. If the Lord is convinced, Kshipram bhavati dharma, he will just take off the influence of this illusory energy from us, and the moment we become proud. So this is also another problem. Lord can take it away from in a moment, and he can put us in a path. But the next moment when we become proud of it, all those things will be launched back on us. Yeah? So we have to be alert. We have to be aware to avoid such accidents. That is the endeavor on our part. So just to summarize, so this is what I had. Just to summarize, today's prayer, today's verse is actually a prayer by Śiva, Lord Vasudeva, who was the presiding deity of Chitta or consciousness. And why was Śiva praying? so that he can engage his senses in the service of the Lord. Okay? And Shiva is also glorifying the Lord by calling him Shantaya, Kutasthaya, and Swaroche. And we also refer to Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is giving the problem statement and also the solution for it. It is our part of endeavor that has to be done. Whenever the mind gets distracted by any material elements, we have to just bring it back and practice them. That's all. And then we also saw the third level of it is where how the senses and the sense objects also we have to be how we have to be alert and aware so that we can avoid any accidents. Both with the senses and the sense objects. We spoke about the tongue, what we eat, and how because of how what we eat is important, so that our vacha is also is clear, and what we speak and how we speak. And the next aspect we saw was the eyes, how eyes as a senses can also be a cause for our downfall. Okay? And the last aspect we saw was of the absorption, and we took the example of Hanumanji, how absorbed he was in the service of the Lord. So whatever distractions come, he was he was very much focused. And so and if we are not in that, we don't practice this particular aspect of trying to bring the mind back, and try to avoid getting into the material conditions, and not taking shelter of the devotees and the Lord. Whenever such distractions happen, what will happen is, and also there is high potential that pride will develop, and because of the pride, definitely immediately what follows is lust, and then the fall down is for sure. Okay, so we should all pray to the Lord to give us the strength. We can pray to Lord Vasudeva, how Shiva is praying in this particular part, that please give us the strength to stay away from this allurement, and give us the strength to practice Krishna consciousness, what Srila Prabhupada has so wonderfully provided us with all. He has covered holistically everything. It is just the matter that we have to understand that and practice that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thanks a lot for the very, very wonderful class. And you have mentioned a lot of important points that we need to be aware in the devotional service, and how to control the tongue, eyes, and how to get absorbed in the devotional service. So we'll directly open for the questions, Prabhuji. Devotees can unmute and ask any questions. Hare Krishna.
Please correct me where there definitely will be shortfalls. I would request devotees to provide the corrections also.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Prabhu, how to have some control over anger, Prabhu, please?
So, for me also it is a struggle, but what happens is probably the best way of controlling anger is to practice reminding us at that particular moment. So anger, see again, it goes to the fact which I said was being alert, being aware to avoid any accidents. So these three aspects, if we take care, right? Now being alert, now we know, again, we should understand the fact that if there is a bottle of mango juice, if you press that mango juice bottle, mango juice will come, not orange juice, right? So if somebody is fuming on us and we also react in the same way, we have to aware that these anarthas are in me also. So which means we are conscious about that particular anartha that we have, that anger quality that we have. First is that aspect. We have to be, because whenever we go to a doctor, the first thing we should know is we have a problem. Then only we go to a doctor, right? Otherwise, we don't need a doctor at all. So the first aspect, and this is again, probably I'm telling so that I also practice that. The first aspect is knowing that we have a problem. Yeah. So if it is anger or anything, so first aspect is that. Second aspect is being alert. Alert is whenever this particular situation comes up. Yeah. First of all, try to avoid getting into the situation as much as possible. Second, if we get into that situation, the third, the most important part is we have to be alert and aware also that yes, this situation because obviously somebody would have infuriated us, or somebody would have created that situation, or maybe we ourselves created the situation. So we have to immediately take shelter of the Lord. Immediately, that Krishna, please help me. That is, and or our worshipable your home deities, or those deities who you feel very near to, or take quickly remember the other devotees. I'm trying to do that also, because especially when we drive, right, this kind of situations happen a lot, right? So best part is the first part is being aware that yes, I also have that. Second is alert in when the situation comes, and third is immediately take shelter of the devotee. But yes, it doesn't mean that if there is a genuine situation, right, it doesn't mean that we curb our anger, or we don't react. So basically, it is responding to that situation rather than reacting. That is very important. I have experienced that many times, that whenever something happens, we immediately react rather than responding. Yeah. So that way, I think if we take care of those 2-3 things, Prabhuji, I feel that I am also practicing this, but it takes care. But it's more of in our nature that we have, our conditioning that we have, that sometimes overrides. But if we take care of this, being alert, aware, and taking shelter of the Lord, and responding to situation rather than reacting to situation, it helps Prabhuji sometimes, and at most of the times I feel. I hope that helps Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Rani Mataji, you wanted to say something? You want me to tell you?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
And very, very nice points you told. But the one small story which reminds me, I think I'll share with you. Like
Yes,
two sannyasis were crossing a river, one guru and Sisha, and there'll be one lady, and she wanted help to cross the river. The guru lifts her and then helps her to cross the river. And it keeps on working in the mind of Sisha. And
Yes.
then guru says, I have already left her there, but you're still
carrying. Yes, Mother. Very wonderful. Very wonderful, Mother. This is a beautiful story of deep lessons. Yes, Mother.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for sharing.
We have to practice what you said.
Yes, Mother. Amen. Please pray for me also, that I can also practice what we. This is what I've heard and compiled. So practicing is the next part of it. I think we can end.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sri Balaji Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam. Thank you for
Hare
very
Krishna,
nice class, Prabhuji. It was very wonderful, enlightening class. Prabhuji, you said this Rudra Gitam. I have one question, Prabhu. The Rudra Gitam consists of 4 parts.
Yes.
First part is, can you repeat that again, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll repeat that. So basically what I mean by 4 parts is, there is a section of verses. So this whole chapter is Rudra Gita. Okay. So the first part, that is from, I can give I did not mention the shloka number, the section of shlokas, but the first part is where Lord Shiva is offering his obeisances to the Chatur Vyuha. Okay, the 4 presiding deities of Chitta, Ahankara, Mana, and Buddhi. Then this shloka, after this shloka is complete, he goes to the next set of shlokas, next set of prayers, where Shiva, the second part, he is describing the beautiful form of Lord Krishna. The second part. Then the third part, then Shiva glorifies the process of Bhakti Yoga. And the fourth part, the last part, last set of shlokas, Shiva describes the relationship between the Lord and the cosmos, or the material world. These are the 4 parts.
What is the last part, Prabhuji? That's what I
Lord Shiva, he describes the relationship between the Lord, the Supreme Lord, and the cosmos, or the material world. That is the last part of it. The cosmos.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
It's a very beautiful prayer, very beautiful. Especially the second part, where the Shiva describes the beautiful form of Lord Krishna. Amazing, amazing section.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. It was wonderful class, especially as Grihasthas, how we should be very careful in dealing with the opposite gender.
Yes.
That is, very, very important reminder for me. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Bhaji.
Wonderful class, very insightful aspect of it. And you also very nicely brought about how this entire Rudra Gita talks of all the three Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana.
Yeah.
That was really very nice. I mean, for the first time I'm hearing this from Rudra Gita also. So I think we should take more time to read it.
Vaishnavan Yatha Shambhu, you have to really pray to Lord Shiva. The 20th verse, Prabhuji, you read that. It is so amazing, Prabhuji. And that is a prayer that we all should have. That whoever surrenders to Lord Vasudeva, he is dear to Lord Shiva.
I also like that aspect of how when we pray to Hanuman, with what mood we should pray, and it's very important because several times we go and at least I do not know what to pray, so at least we should know. I should learn and make sure I say the right prayers before that.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
We'll end the class.
Yes, Prabhuji. Mancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyaivacha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namo anantakoti vaishnavrinda ki jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class, and thanks all the devotees for actually now ending the